I saw what you couldn't bring yourself to say, what you buried beneath the surface because naming it out loud would have made it too real. I noticed the flicker in your eyes when you smiled but didn't mean it, the hesitation in your breath when someone asked how you were doing, and you replied with a quick, "I'm fine," even though your soul was trembling. You kept it hidden, not because you didn't trust me, but because somewhere along the way, you convinced yourself that I had more important things to worry about. You thought that maybe your grief was too small to register, that your confusion was a mess I wouldn't understand, that your doubts would disappoint me. So you tucked them away neatly in the quiet corners of your mind. And you kept going. But I watched it happen, not with disappointment, not with distance, but with a kind of love that leans in closer when you retreat. There's a particular kind of pain that makes you quieter. It doesn't shout, it doesn't demand, it just lives in you like a secret. I felt that. The ache you didn't speak, the memories you didn't touch, the loneliness that sat beside you like a familiar stranger. You thought you were hiding it, but I saw it all. Not to expose you, to carry it with you, to remind you that what you hide doesn't disappear, it just waits for healing. And that healing doesn't need you to be strong first. It just needs you to be honest. You didn't mean to become distant. Life has a way of teaching you to protect your tenderness. One small disappointment after another, one prayer that went unanswered, one moment when you showed your heart and were met with silence. That's all it took. Over time, you began to believe that keeping quiet was safer than being misunderstood again. That if you didn't name the wound, it couldn't hurt more. But silence, my love, is not always shelter. Sometimes it's where the weight gets heavier. And I never asked you to carry that weight alone. I've never been distant from the parts of you you've tried to hide. In fact, those are the places I've come closest to. The parts of you that feel too tender, too fragile, too complicated. That's where I dwell. I'm not here for your perfection. I'm here for your truth. I'm not waiting for your performance. I'm listening for your heartbeat. And even when you speak in whispers or fall completely silent, I am attuned to the language of your soul. What you buried didn't stay buried with me. I held it. I've been tending to the things you didn't know how to name, watering the soil of your sorrow with a gentleness you forgot you deserved. I've been rebuilding you quietly from the inside out. No fanfare, no pressure, just presence. You are not too far gone. You are not too broken. You are not too complex for me. What you thought needed to stay hidden is exactly where your healing begins. And I am here. Always have been. Still am. And even now, I'm not looking away. There were moments when you didn't even realize you were pulling away. It wasn't dramatic. It didn't happen all at once. It was subtle. The way you started answering less when I whispered your name. The way your prayers became quieter, shorter, until they stopped altogether. You didn't mean to drift. You were just tired. Tired of explaining pain you couldn't even define. Tired of trying to feel something when your emotions had gone flat. And underneath it all, there were pieces of you didn't want to touch. Questions that haunted you in the middle of the night. Regret that lived in the pauses of your thoughts. Fear that if you brought them to me, even I might flinch. But I didn't. I never do. I sat with you in those quiet nights. I watched the way your body folded into itself, not in defiance, but in exhaustion. I noticed the way you stared at the ceiling, hoping for clarity that never seemed to come. You thought your silence meant you'd gone cold, that the fire had gone out. But I saw it differently. I saw the small flicker you didn't even notice, the one that stayed alive despite everything. I saw faith that didn't look like joy or dancing or loud declarations. I saw the kind of faith that simply refuses to walk away, the kind that breathes through gritted teeth, that stays when nothing makes sense. There is something sacred about what you kept hidden. Not because hiding is holy, but because it reveals where you felt unprotected, You didn't bury it out of rebellion. You buried it because you didn't know where else to place it, and that alone tells me so much. It tells me you wanted to be strong. It tells me you were trying to survive, but survival has never been the same as healing. And I didn't call you to live behind walls. I called you to live free. So gently, without force, I've been walking you back, not to shame you, not to make you relive what hurt you, but to help you remember that nothing you've carried is too much for me. You've made it this far without crumbling, and yet you've convinced yourself you're fragile. But look again. Look at the way you stayed, the way you kept showing up to life even when it didn't feel like living. That's not fragility. That's courage. Real, quiet, unrecognized courage. And that pain you locked away, I'm not afraid of it. I don't need you to explain it in perfect sentences. I just want you to open the door, just a little, just enough to let me in. I already see it all. The grief that lingers behind your smile, the ache beneath your calm, the parts of you that feel too complex to name. I see what you buried because I never took my eyes off you, and what you think disqualifies you is actually the evidence of your strength. You are not falling apart. You are unfolding. You are not lost. You are learning how to be found again. Slowly, honestly. And I'm right here, discovering what you tried so hard to keep hidden. Not to uncover you, but to cover you in grace. You've mistaken silence for distance. You've assumed that because you couldn't feel me, I must have stepped back. But presence doesn't always shout. It doesn't always announce itself with thunder or signs. Sometimes presence is stillness. Sometimes it's me, sitting beside you in your silence, listening to everything you don't say. And I've heard it all. The thoughts you barely formed. The feelings that surfaced in fragments. The guilt you whispered only once, then tried to forget. I didn't miss any of it. I discovered what you tried to manage on your own. Not to remind you of your weakness, but to bring your soul back to ease. Because I never asked you to carry what was never yours to bear. You've grown so used to hiding that you forgot what it feels like to be fully seen. I know that being seen feels risky. Vulnerability always does. Somewhere along the way, you learned that silence keeps you safe. That if you say less, feel less, reveal less, you can avoid the ache. But safety isn't the same as healing, and hiding isn't the same as peace. I didn't come to expose you. I came to release you from the pressure, from the performance, from the quiet lie that says only the strong are worthy. I came to remind you that your hiddenness was never hidden from me. And I know trust doesn't come easily anymore. You've watched people walk away when they saw too much. You felt the sting of being too honest too soon. You've been met with silence when you needed comfort, correction when you needed compassion. So I understand why you've grown quiet, why you retreat instead of reach. But let me be clear, I do not turn away when you are real. I do not flinch when you're raw. I do not withdraw when you bring me your fears instead of your faith. I stay. That's what love does. It stays. What you've hidden, I've held. The thoughts you were ashamed of. The questions you thought were too irreverent. The doubts you assumed disqualified you. I've seen them all. And still, I have not changed my mind about you. You are not a disappointment I'm trying to fix. You are a soul I am loving back to life. The pieces you thought disqualified you are becoming the foundation of something deeper, more honest, more grounded, something that can't be shaken by every storm. Don't rush to explain this season. You're not meant to have language for everything you're feeling, not yet. Some things grow best in silence. Some truths don't need words, just space to breathe. And right now, you are becoming something holy in the quiet. You're no longer hiding because of fear. You're resting in what's being revealed. The light is coming gently now, uncovering not to harm but to heal. And I'm walking with you through every step of it, not asking for perfection, just presence. I discovered what you kept hidden, and I stayed. That's who I've always been, and who I will always be. There's a shift happening inside you. You may not have words for it yet, but something is changing. The burden you carried for so long is starting to feel lighter, not because the weight disappeared, but because you finally stopped carrying it alone. The things you buried, your weariness, your questions, the shame that clung to quiet corners of your soul, have begun to surface not as threats, but as invitations. You no longer need to pretend you're unaffected. You don't need to protect others from your truth. You've hidden long enough. And now grace is pulling you gently into the light. I know it feels unfamiliar to be this open. Vulnerability often does. But this openness isn't weakness, it's healing. It's the sacred unraveling of what you thought you had to hide forever. You're not unraveling in chaos. You're being rewoven in truth, and that truth says this: I was never afraid of your depth. I never needed your silence to prove devotion. I never asked for performance. I asked for you, and you've come. Even in pieces, even in whispers, even unsure, you came. The hidden places you feared would disqualify you are becoming the places I now dwell most deeply. The voice you silenced out of protection is beginning to return, not with noise, but with clarity. You can speak again. You can feel again, not because you forced yourself to, but because my presence has reminded you it's safe now, safe to feel, safe to breathe, safe to live whole, not half present. You're no longer surviving your days. You're stepping into them, awake, alive, anchored. You once believed that if people saw the full truth of who you are, they might walk away. But I didn't. I saw everything and moved closer. I discovered what you kept hidden, and I called it holy ground, because it is. Every scar, every question, every tear-stained night, it's all sacred to me. You're not behind. You're not broken. You are beloved, and you're becoming someone stronger than you've ever been. Not the kind of strength that performs, but the kind that stands, steady and silent, rooted in truth. Now walk forward, not with the need to prove anything, but with peace. You don't need to explain your healing to the world. Just live it. Let your quiet become a testimony. Let your stillness carry weight. Let your life reflect the truth that even what was hidden has now been healed. If this message met you in the quiet, know it wasn't by accident. You've been seen, you've been heard, and now you've been found. You're part of something sacred, something unfolding, and if you feel the presence of God speaking to you through this, you are not alone. You are home. This is Jesus' blessed message, spoken over your life, whispered into your heart, and alive in your spirit. Let it settle in you, let it awaken you, and if this spoke to the hidden places in your soul today, comment Amen below, not just as a word, but as a declaration. I'm ready, I'm seen, I'm no longer hiding.